Hey you guys, I was just about to apply my second coat of oil on this cutting board I made, which is going to be available on my website later today. And while I was getting ready to do this, I figured I'll make a video to talk to you about should you use mineral oil for the cutting boards? Is there a better alternative? What are the pros and cons? When should you or should you not use mineral oil? So that's what I want to talk to you today. It's not a how-to video. This is more about an educational, so you understand what you should use and when, and let's get right into it. Now, my mother-in-law was visiting the other day, and I just gave her a can of my butter board so she can put it on her cutting boards at home. And she asked me, well, Skylar, what is mineral oil? And it just dawned on me that a lot of people do not know what mineral oils comes from, what is it, so that's what we'll talk about it today. What does mineral oil comes from? Mineral oil comes from petroleum oil. Petroleum oil, it's a natural oil, it's not synthetic, it's not man-made. It is found underground and under the seafloor. Petroleum oil is what gasoline is made from. Gasoline is just petroleum oil that's been distilled and refined, and that's how we get our, gasoline. So is that something you ought to put on your cutting board? Let's find out. Now, like I said, mineral oil, it comes from petroleum oil. It's, super processed petroleum oil. And I watched a video the other day of someone finishing a cutting board using baby oil. So if you go to the drugstore and you find a bottle of baby oil, it will say mineral oil on the back or the ingredients. Well, mineral oil is not the same thing as food-grade mineral oil. When you buy something for your cutting boards, if you decide to use mineral oil, make sure you get food-grade mineral oil. It is really super, super refined, and they remove all the waxes, the smells, the colors, all the things that give you cancer. So you want to use the one that it says food grade. Now, what will be a better alternative to mineral oil? After doing much research on finishes, and I make a lot of my own finishes, I really fell in love with pure tung oil. Not tung oil finish, that is something else that has just a little bit of tung oil and then it has poly and all kinds of other stuff in it. I'm talking pure tung oil. Pure tung oil comes from China. It's also known as China oil. And it's just made from the seeds from the tree of tung, and they're pressed, and that's how it produces the tung oil. So it's completely natural, comes from a seed from a tree. That sounds like something a lot more likely that I want to put on my cutting board. Now, there is a lot of pros and cons when it comes to mineral oil and tung oil, and that's what I want to talk to you right now about. Mineral oil, it's a non-drying oil. That means if you take some mineral oil and put it on a piece of glass, not wood because the wood will absorb it, put it on a piece of glass, you can let it sit for months at a time, and then when you come back, you will see it never dries. It just becomes goopy. It becomes really, really gross. Where tung oil, it's a drying oil, just like linseed oil, walnut oil, and many other oils. That means with exposure to air, it will dry to a hard surface. Not hard like poly, like plastic, more like a hard wax. So those could be pros and cons when it comes to cutting board. If you put mineral oil on a cutting board, that means bacteria could go into the wood, and that could be good or bad. If bacteria can get into the wood, it's a bad thing, but that means also every time you wash your board, bacteria can come out of the wood. So some might argue that is the better choice for cutting boards. If you're using tung oil, that will seal the wood, it will penetrate the wood and will harden and protect it and seal it. That means bacteria will not get into the wood. But if it does get into the wood, it gets locked in there and it cannot come out easily, not like with mineral oil. So pros and cons. Now, mineral oil, because it never dries, that means every time you wash your board, every time you put food on it, it will kind of seep out and you have to re-oil it very, very often. Where tung oil, it hardens and it protects and it stays there for a lot longer. In fact, I watched a video on YouTube of this guy. He had some wooden spoon and he finished them, one with mineral oil, one with tung oil, one with linseed oil. And I don't remember if he used the walnut oil as well. And then he submerged halfway these spoons into a pot of boiling water for 5 minutes on the stove. And then he pulled them out and let them dry. and the mineral oil was completely leached out of the wood. It was dry, and you can see the difference where it was oiled. The top part that was not submerged into the water. So the part that was in the boiling water completely leached out all the oil. It was dry, and then the linseed oil, it kind of like bleached out maybe half of it. You can see a difference on the color. Tung oil stays the same, so it did not leached into the water, was locked into that spoon and then to the wood, and it stayed like that. So I really like that. That means, you know, you can wash the boards and stuff and the oil is not going to seep out. That means it's going to last for a lot longer, and you don't need to reapply the finish so often. Now, it doesn't matter if you use mineral oil or tung oil. You should be using a wax to lock in your oils. I do make butter boards with mineral oil, and I also have beeswax and tung oil. I sell both of those on my website, and it doesn't matter where you buy them or make it yourself, but you should be using a wax on top of your oil. Now, another advantage of using mineral oil is the fact that you can put mineral oil on a cutting board, and 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, or whatever, when it's dry, you can go and eat food off of it, and it's totally fine. Where tung oil, you have to let it dry. And tung oil, pure tung oil, it can take between 5 days to 30 days to cure. The pure tung oil I like to buy is this one. It's made in America. It's pure, has nothing else in it. And when you use tung oil, generally you want to use thin, multiple layers to apply it. And tung oil, the reason why I fell in love with it is because it's natural, but also brings out the grain like nothing else. No other finish brings out the grain in wood like tung oil. Now, the best way to apply tung oil is to thin it out 1-to-1 ratio with a solvent of your choice. If you make furniture, boxes, or whatever, you'll probably want to use just mineral spirit, odorless mineral spirits. And then if you are using it for something that gets in contact with food, you want to go with something natural like this citrus solvent. This is all natural. It's biodegradable solvent, and it comes straight from the peel over orange. So this is just orange peel squeezed to produce that oil. And a solvent will not only make your tung oil penetrate the wood a lot faster and deeper, it also makes it dry faster. Now, be careful using this citrus solvent. It does have a strong smell. It's a wonderful smell. I love using it in my shop. It makes my shop smells like oranges for days. But I'm not sure that's something I want to have on my cutting board where I will be putting my steak. Or do I? Maybe I do. I don't know. When I do cutting boards, I try to use something that doesn't have any smell. And for my personal use, when I make a cutting board for my own personal use, I'll just use straight pure tung oil, very thin layers, and let it cure in between. And even though it takes a really long time to cure, that's my preferred method. And then I'll just use my tung oil and beeswax to seal it. And all the cutting boards that I make and sell on my website, I do finish them with mineral oil and board butter, which is mineral oil and beeswax. And the reason I use the mineral oil for my website, for the things that I'm selling, is because most people do not know all this information I just told you. So that means the first time their board starts looking dry, they're gonna go on Amazon or their local Home Depot and buy the first board butter they find, which probably means they're gonna end up putting mineral oil on it anyway. Now, I know you're gonna tell me, Skylar, we've been using mineral oil on cutting boards for ages and nobody died from it. It's totally fine. And you are right. It is totally fine. It's just like eating organic or non-organic. You're probably gonna be just fine. But if you have a choice to choose on what you wanna to get in contact with your food that you're eating, I say you should have the information and make that decision on your own. Now, like I said in the beginning of the video, this was not a how-to video. It was just a thought of finishes when it comes to cutting boards. I know as woodworkers, we all made cutting boards. Even if you're a brand new woodworker, that's probably going to be one of the first projects you do. And then as a seasoned woodworkers, we still make cutting boards. We just try to go maybe a little bit more complicated, more fancy cutting boards. But everybody makes cutting boards. Everybody uses cutting boards. So it's important to know how to finish them. I hope this was useful to you and you learned something new. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Skylar Ewing, and I'll see you in my next video.